Welcome back to Hoochos. Today on Hoochos, I'm going to take you on a journey through over a year and a half of my hydroponic dragon fruit experiments, starting with the building of this. This is a hydroponic system for dragon fruit. Working our way through my experiments all the way to this. This is my hydroponic system for dragon fruit a year and a half later, having flowered and fruited, completing our journey through this hydroponic method of growing dragon fruit. In this video, I'm going to show you the cutting techniques, planting techniques, the building of the towers. I'm going to cover the mistakes and the happy discoveries that I make along my hydroponic dragon fruit journey, with the whole journey climaxing with the flowering and subsequent fruiting of my hydroponic dragon fruits that I am really excited to share with you, and most importantly let you know how the fruits of this over a year and a half long labor taste. So let's get to discussing the idea of hydroponic dragon fruits and see what information already exists that other people have experimented with. So let's have a look at what's out and about on the internet to gain some knowledge that we can then utilize into a system design that will make the most of growing dragon fruit hydroponically. The first place I usually start is a simple Google search, and generally maximum yield is right at the top of that search. This is because they've got their search engine optimization nailed. The articles tend to give a surface level view of what can be learned on the internet without going into any real deep knowledge. Basically, this article outlines the fact that dragon fruit liked timed irrigation cycles, and systems like Dutch buckets would generally be ideal for dragon fruits, that they like an EC of between 1.4 to 1.0, and that their pH is between 5.8 and 6.0. It also outlines the generalized growing knowledge, such as the drainage is essential, expanded clay, gravels, perlite, basically anything to drain the water away from sitting on the roots is essential when growing dragon fruit. And this is why I love hydroponics. This picture you're seeing in front of you is exactly the opposite of what you've just been told. It's a deep water culture dragon fruit, and here's the guy that grows it to tell you all about it.
Hello, hi, I'm Adam Dixon from Phytoponics, and we make commercial hydroponic growing systems. But on the side of that, I like to test and grow exotic plants because it's my hobby and one of my passions. Tucked away in the corner of our commercial research facility, we've got some dragon fruit growing. Here is some fruit. This one's a couple of days from ripening. Yeah, very exciting. We've got dragon fruit, vanilla and rambutan in our system.
So this isn't product placement, this is just my interest in how they're growing the dragon fruit hydroponically. Essentially, I jumped through their website and found out that their system is made up of these deep water culture plastic tubes, I guess you could call them. They're supported either by inflatable edges or these bars that hang the internal plastics and suspend water around the roots in which the plants are grown in a deep water culture environment, which is, well, I mean, super interesting and a really fantastic idea, especially since the cost of freight for an inflatable system such as this would be negligible. How robust the system is would be interesting. It looks like some of the systems have end plates which are made of solid plastic, which then suspend the bags or channels over a longer distance with reinforcement, and then some of the systems are actually inflatable, relying on the edges, sort of like an inflatable kiddie pool relies on the inflatableness of the sides to keep the water from escaping the containment of the pool. Super interesting stuff, and it's really insightful to know that dragon fruit will tolerate a DWC hydroponic environment. Okay, now for something a little bit more traditional, I looked at a ton of different growing styles for hydroponic and standard growing styles for dragon fruit, and this was one of my favorite videos, and you'll actually see a lot of influences in my build from this video. All these videos will be linked below, and you can check them out in your own time if you like. This method involves using sandy soil to allow drainage for the growing medium that the dragon fruit is in at the top. Now, this is a cow manure and cocoa peat grow medium for this video. However, I'll be changing that for our hydroponic requirements. You'll also notice the 100mm piping. Now, there is a method on this channel and a reason why I'm going with 100mm piping, and it has to do with supporting the dragon fruit later in the growth stages of its life cycle. So to begin with, let's find a donor cactus and we can start taking cuttings in preparation for our system build. So here is our donor dragon fruit, and obviously it's definitely outgrown this pot because it sent a root through one of the holes in the bottom and into the garden bed below that it was in. So I'm just going to remove that root, then we can divide it up. Okay, so I just want to interject quickly because this is a rather important point. I found that dragon fruit not knowing what subspecies it was, and that means that I didn't know whether it was self-pollinating or it required pollination from another plant. One thing I didn't consider was I did not know how it would fruit, and this side of this pot is the result a year and a half later. As you can see, the fruit from the dragon fruit that I took cuttings from is very much inferior to the fruit from the dragon fruit that I purchased from a nursery, knowing what subspecies of dragon fruit that it is. I would highly recommend that you don't just go taking cuttings from plants that you are unsure of their productivity. I would recommend that you go with known stock or a friend's plant that you have seen produce decent fruit, because it is a long time to invest in something that produces a subpar fruit. Now, I am lucky that I planted two separate types and I have a favorable result with one of them. All right, so I'm just gonna go for the healthy bits. All these new shoots here, I'm gonna cut them off at the skinniest part and then we'll dry them out. So I'm gonna use a nice sharp pair of secateurs and we'll just cut it right where it joins the main cactus, like that. Okay, so now that we've got all our cuttings laid out, I'm gonna let them sit for a week and they'll seal up on the ends where I've cut them, and then we can plant them into our substrate. So I'm just gonna put these in a dry place out of direct sunlight. Through the magic of YouTube, it's now been a week and it's time to set up the system that I've decided to grow these dragon fruit in. So for the dragon fruit, for the support poles that are going to go down the center of the pot, I'm going to use these 100mm pipes. To support the pole, I'm going to have just under 20 centimeters of river stone to hold it up. So I'm going to cut the poles to be 1 meter long. So I ended up making a few mistakes at the start of the build, and this is one of them. The pipes ended up being 1.5 meters long. So adjust your pipes accordingly. Just hang in there, I promise things are gonna get better. And now I can fill around it with river stone. I'm now just gonna fill the center of the pipe as well as around the pipes. Now, there is actually another video which was the original building of this system, and in that video I was planning on having all of these dragon fruits hooked up to a rain gutter grow system. So within that video contains a longer build for these pots, because these pots are a little bit more complicated than was required. They include wicks which have net pots at the bottom that allow these pots to wick up and out of the rain gutter grow system which is below them. But I never actually implemented this design, the reason being it kind of overcomplicated things when you consider that the watering from above is a perfectly adequate method, and there's really no need to overcomplicate that drain to waste water from above method. Now all of our pots are ready. The next media I'm going to add in is cocoa and scoria, an inert media kind of similar to clay balls. It just has a ton more surface area, and the reason I'm adding this in, this doesn't hold excesses of water, and it will allow the substrate to drain, hopefully, and give the dragon fruit the ideal growing conditions. This is your scoria. There's still a lot more cocoa than I'd like in that, so I'm going to go 2 parts scoria to 1 part cocoa. We can just add that into our pots. I've added on about 100 millimeters of the 2 parts scoria, 1 part cocoa. And now I'm going to do that all the way along. And then we're going to step up the scoria again as we get towards the top and where we're planting in the dragon fruit. And this will allow the roots, if we give it a gradient of media, this will allow the roots to choose where they're comfortable being in the sense of how moist the media is. So I'm going to go along and fill these up with 2 parts scoria, 1 part cocoa, and then we'll add in maybe 3 parts scoria, 1 part cocoa, and then we can look at where we want to plant in that media. Okay, we can now plant our dragon fruit cuttings. Now, it's been about a week since I made these cuttings, and as well as these cuttings, because I'm actually not sure what kind of dragon fruit plant this is, and there's 2 distinct flowering types. There's one that will self-pollinate, and there's one that requires the pollination from another plant. So I didn't want to risk that this was the one that requires the pollination from another plant, where the 2 clones or cuttings won't pollinate with each other. So I also purchased some dragon fruit stock from a nursery nearby who posted them out to me. I just want to show you on all of the cuttings, the cutting has dried and sealed. Ow, 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 that's a prick. Ah. And here's a look. This is the description. And to plant the tube stock, I'm not going to bother removing any more dirt than what just falls off immediately as I take it out of the tube. And I'm just going to plant it straight into the cocoa scoria mix up to the point where the tube ends. So pretty simple. Pop it in here. Careful of those bricks. Oh, that's lovely. See how well rooted that is? Okay. Just put that in there. I'm going to plant it with the concave side to the pipe so that when I pull it taut, look at that. It's like it was meant to be piped. All right. And to secure it to the post, I'm just going to use this soft plant rubber tie. Come behind it. I'll just do this. Straight around like that. Now, what I've realized while doing that is if you're going to do both sides, you may as well tie them both at the same time. We'll figure it out. I'm going to go and do the same planting for each of these, and then we'll put in our cuttings. Well, that one came out and it hasn't rooted at all. That's okay. I'm just going to treat it like the other cuttings. It's actually not really impressed with the quality of that cutting, to be honest. You should be able to tell by the top where there's no new growth, and it's not really. I'm going to take that top off as well. I'm just not happy with that. So hopefully this will shoot out, but yeah, not really tube stock. I'll do the same thing that I'm going to do with the cuttings for this one. All I'm going to do for the cuttings, so it's really simple. I don't even need a shovel. I'm going to find the side that I want against the pole. That's the one I want. And I'm just going to stick it in to our grow media. And then I can tie it up. There we go. I'm just going to not even really cover it. I just want to make that nice and level around it. So I'm just going to set up the rest, and we can water them in. Okay, so all our dragon fruit is planted and ready to go. Just to start the dragon fruit, they really don't need much water and nutrient at all. So I'm going to water in a watering can of hydroponic nutrient, full strength, 6.5 pH, 2.4 EC, and then water that down to half with just plain water. And then I'm just going to water them in. So I don't really need to worry how much I put on here, because the way that I've designed the media in this system is, even if I overwater or it gets too much rain, any excess should just drain straight through the cocoa, which won't take up any more than it needs to take up. It will never get waterlogged. And then straight through the scoria as well, and then through the river stone. And the excess will actually just drain out the bottom holes around the edges, as well as the bottom holes in the pots. If you want to make sure you've got free draining pots and you've only got the edge holes, you can add in holes to the bottom. So I'll just water these in. And I'm going to manually feed the systems periodically until I have this full area set up with hydroponic systems and I get my hand on an IBC that I can feed all of the systems from. The reason I've actually planted the dragon fruit in this area is because it's a very shady area. So dragon fruit are a subtropical cactus. However, they don't particularly like full sun. They will cope with it, but they do prefer partial shade. So I've taken that into consideration when I chose this spot. Luckily for me, I live in a pretty hot area that stays humid and doesn't really get below freezing throughout the whole year. We do get fairly cold winters, but it rarely dips below zero. And the summers tend to be hot and humid. They can get dry, but I think these guys will be absolutely fine in my climate. And then we've got the dragon fruit hydroponic system. It's going really well. What can I say? It's a slow growing plant, but you'll turn around and then all of a sudden it will have grown like another 6 inches. They tend to grow in bursts as far as I can tell, or I'm just not paying attention enough. I mean, you can tell the difference between the fresh growth and the old growth by the color of it. There's fresh growth on all of them, except for the one down here. And I tried to remove it, but it has an extensive root network. So I'm actually going to leave it because I want to see what it produces once it gets all of its resources together and puts out a pup. I'm really interested to see how this system performs long term. And I'm interested to see how the plants produce fruit, given that this is a hydroponic grow environment. The next system I want to talk about is our dragon fruit system. And as you can see, they are doing phenomenally. Now, I'm actually going to be putting tops on them soon so that we can support these branches that are draping down more so than we have with this one piece of string. But as you can see, where I've cut the tops to make them sort of span out, we've got some really nice growth there, and on all of the tops that I cut too. So this is really encouraging, and these guys handle the rain really well. So all that I've been doing here is I've been watering from above, straight out of our res back here. I've just been turning on the tap and using a hose to water from above. And I've been doing this maybe once a week, and that allows me to just drain to waste water them, and it doesn't overwater them either. So I've been really happy with how this has been performing, and the only thing that I might change about my recommendations of this system is these PVC pipes. They don't really give anything for the roots to grip onto. So if you want to make it as easy on yourself as you possibly can, the roots will wrap around like this, but if you have them on something that they can get a grip on, so say it was timber, they can actually penetrate into the timber and hold themselves up. So that is one consideration. I've obviously committed to this method. The dragon fruits, and these are one of the hydroponic systems that I'm most excited about at the moment. As you can see, I've made supports for the top of the poles, and these allow the dragon fruits to grow up and out of the supports and hang down. Now this will encourage fruiting once the branches fall over and are overhanging these trellises. So at the top here, you can see that I've cut off the end of the dragon fruit's limb. Now the reason I've done that is because when you cut it, this is a fresh cut, this is a few days old, it will push out new growth from all of the nodes around the end of the dragon fruit. And that is what you can see is happening here, where I've cut the top and all of the nodes around the dragon fruit start to push out new growth. This will allow a crown at the top, and that will fill out and overhang the trellising. So for the trellising, all I did was I cut some pieces of timber to length and I nailed it together with a nail gun. Now the outside posts are actually made of untreated pine because I didn't want the arsenic in the treated pine. Unfortunately, I had to go with treated pine for the center and going down into where the pole slides into our support system, and it actually has held up really well. They're really stable and I'm extremely happy with how they turned out. I actually really like the look of them. They're very rustic and thrown together, but they do the job perfectly. And I actually had a mate who is obsessed with cactus come around recently, and he's never seen dragon fruit's growth as fast as this. Now again, all I've been doing is top watering them with hydroponic nutrient. So my 1,000 litre res of hydroponic nutrient, turn it on, and because there's so much nutrient in there, I get a really nice flow. I've just been coming along and watering the top of the cocoa and scoria mix that these dragon fruit are in, and that has produced this result. I'm really only coming along and watering these once a week and sporadically at that. They've really responded well to negligence, which has been fantastic, but they've also really responded well to the hydroponic method of growing, which is no nutrition in the grow media and full nutrition supplied by an aqueous solution of nutrients. These guys though, these guys I'm super excited about. They have just been going from strength to strength. This is the hydroponic dragon fruit. They've grown up and over the top of the trellising that I created for them. They are shooting out tons of pups, I guess you'd call them, from the nodes just prior to where I've cut them. So I highly recommend that technique of cutting them. They just multiply exponentially back from the cut, and I've been super impressed with this system in its entirety. The cocoa and scoria is a perfect mix and it does not require much maintenance at all. Literally no other input other than the hydroponic nutrient, which I feed them on a very sporadic basis, and during this whole wet weather event, I've not fed them at all. It is getting to the point where I'm going to start to recharge that cocoa right now, so I'll probably come through and water them with hydroponic nutrient this afternoon. Even with all the rain, the cocoa has been draining out perfectly, and because it's got that high CEC, it still holds on to the nutrient even though there's a ton of water traveling through it. Behind me are the dragon fruits. So these are literally just a mixture of scoria and cocoa. In the base, I've got river rock. I did plan on having these connected up to rain gutter grow systems, and they have actually got internal wicks if I do want to do that, but I've found no need to do that whatsoever. Even sporadically watering them from above and then allowing the natural rain events to also moisten the media has been absolutely fine. I've never ever found that I've come out and gone, oh, I really need to water these guys. They just keep powering on. They go a slight lighter green, not at the moment because I've been watering them regularly. Probably every 4 or 5 days I'll come out and give them a water with the watering can, but when they start to go a paler green, I go, okay, well I probably need to water them, and then I just come along and they get a third of a watering can each. That's it. I just dump my watering can into my nutrient reservoir from above and water away. That's how simple it can be. Now, if I were to build this system again, I would use wooden poles. That's not because of any nutritional reason. It's just because these plants hold themselves up with their roots. So it would actually allow me to remove all of my ties and not worry about the plant falling away from the pipe. Now, the roots are making their way around the pipe, but there's just no porosity in the PVC for them to grab onto. I would prefer to have them gripping onto a piece of wood, and that's just my own fault. I used what I had around rather than going for the traditional way of doing it, and I thought, everything else I do is made of PVC, why don't I make this of PVC too? It was wrong, that's fine. We live and learn. You don't have to make my mistake, though they have turned out fantastically, and it's not a huge mistake, it's just something that niggles me from time to time. Behind me, I've got the Dragonfruit hydroponic system, which has been going really well. It just keeps growing. I haven't seen any flowers on it yet, which I thought I would have by now, but it's the healthiest dragon fruit that I've ever seen, and I'm not going to complain. As long as they keep growing and stay that shade of green, I'm extremely happy with that method of nutrient delivery. Here we have the dragon fruit, and I am pretty excited to share this one with you because this is what I've been waiting for so long. You can see here we have our first dragon fruit flower, and I am super excited. I've got multiple time-lapse cameras pointing at it because I want to catch that flower flowering for the first time, and it's not the only flower either. So we've got here another flower, and I am fairly certain that if we come over here, you can see the very start of a flower coming off this limb here as well. So exciting stuff. I have been waiting with anticipation for this moment, and I'll have footage for you soon. And finally, after a year and a half, after all of those updates, the dragon fruits have gathered their resources and started to put out flowers. Now, in this next section, I'm going to be showing you a time lapse of the dragon fruits leading into a time lapse of the dragon fruits flowers. So your time lapse for today is actually one that I'm rather proud of, and I hope you enjoy it. And there it is. A truly remarkable result. I'm blown away with the result that this drain to waste style of hydroponics has produced for this style of plant. The key takeaways from this video are: pick your plant, make sure that the variety that you're getting is a productive variety, make your posts out of wood, and a couple of things that I'd like to point out now that I haven't discussed already. I was right to get a mixture of subspecies of the dragon fruit, because that initial flower that you just saw in the time lapse actually never resulted in any fruit. This is where it was located on this plant, and as you can see, there's no fruit in that vicinity. The flower produced a fruit which was not pollinated because it was a single flower and it was on a plant that required pollination rather than being a self-pollinating plant. This meant that the fruit shriveled up at the base of the flower and did not produce anything edible. The self-pollinating plants were able to self-pollinate and therefore have more fruit on them. Some of the later flowers from the non-self-pollinating variety were flowering at the same time, allowing the bees to get in amongst the flowers and pollinate between the different subspecies of dragon fruit. This meant that I have fruit set on some of the non-self-pollinating ones, but because some of them flowered out of timing with the others, I had a few of the flowers not result in any fruit. I'd also just quickly like to point out a few observations. The places where I have cut the ends and all of the crowns have sprouted out worked really well. So I highly recommend that technique, because the amount of mass of plant that I'm getting coming out of the top is a lot greater than the trunk of the plant itself, and this is purely because of all of those new shoots coming out on the nodes just before where I cut the arms as they protruded out the top of these wooden crowning structures. I'd also like to point out the dragon fruit is latching onto the non-treated pine compared to the treated pine surfaces. If you are going to be making a structure like this, do not use treated pine, use untreated pine, and you will get results like this, where the root systems of the dragon fruit are penetrating into and gripping onto your structure. You can see here, there's no roots penetrating into this piece of wood which is treated, in comparison to this untreated piece, which you can see the roots have just made their way along and are gripping completely. So you really want to make sure that you're using untreated pine or whatever the wood is that you use to make these crowning structures. The roots are even trying to hold on to the PVC with some success here, but it's just not ideal. Okay, so it's now time for what I would consider my favorite part, the taste test. This is pretty bloody exciting. So I'm actually going to take some of the limb with it, like so, and then that will probably sprout out more shoots going back from where the fruit was. There is our fruit. How cool. And here is the flower structure that produced the fruit. So up here we have another one. Just going to take this whole limb again, like so. You can use that as a cutting, like that. There we go. And I'll grab a couple of the other type, which we have here. So I'll take the end of this one, and I'm just going to cut this one out of this, like so. And I've left a few of the immature ones on there, and a few which are ready, but only like these two. And we can cut open and taste test our dragon fruit. Okay, this should be interesting. wondering what they look like on the inside. White. Look at that. There is the smaller of the two dragon fruits. I don't think that they're ripe yet. And the larger of the two. Oh, stop it. Look at that. How good is that? Oh, how good is that? That is a dragon fruit. Now that is a fantastic result. I'm super excited to try this. Are you super excited to try it too, Floki? You wouldn't miss out on a meal, would you? Here we go. Skin should just peel away from the meat, like so. Yeah, that's really good. I don't even know how to explain that flavor. It's really sweet to start with. It's definitely not overwhelming. Would you like some? How would you explain it? It's dragon fruit flavored. It's really helpful, I know. Really good though. Definitely right. I might need to bring in someone else to try it. Dad!
It's got seeds in it.
Yeah.
Can you cut a bit off without seeds?
You can't, it's all seeds.
Oh, it's all seeds.
All right, you gotta try this and tell me what the flavor is. So take a bite, tell me what the flavor is.
No, it's a bit like coconutty type, or
Yeah, a little bit like coconut flesh.
Mm.
Yeah. That's the
Yeah.
texture and a little bit of the flavor as well.
yeah, it's not as much texture, but
No.
and a lot more moist.
Yeah, without that like distinct coconut flavor, but there's something there. I have no idea what it tastes like.
Very nice.
There you go.
First time.
Yeah. Was that the first time you've eaten it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You like it?
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, cool.
I'm not allowed to eat seeds, but
I just killed you probably.
yeah. You put me back in hot. They're like a poppy seed, you know,
Oh,
on the bread.
yeah, kiwi fruit. Yeah, it's like lacking sweetness, but it's still pretty sweet. There's a sweetness to it. I don't know. How did you describe a color? And there it is. That is the hydroponic dragon fruit experiments. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hoochos. I really enjoyed making it. I enjoyed growing them, and I enjoyed eating the fruits of my labor. So, happy hydroponicking, and I'll see you next time on Hoochos.